Welcome back to Cover Killer Nation's favorite albums. There's a lot of bands that are supposedly coming back or been guaranteed to have a new album coming out here in the calendar year of 2015. So, in honor of this, we have 4 albums today from bands that are either set to release an album here in this calendar year, either that or hope to have an album either out by the end of the year or at least hope to have the recording finished. So, let's take a look at them. Up first, we have avant-garde metal band Arcturus with their 2002 album, The Sham Mirrors. Arcturus is coming back here in 2015, their first album in 10 years, their last one coming in 2005, entitled Slideshow Symphonies. But the Sham Mirrors in 2002 really encompassed all of the diverse elements that Arcturus really brought to their music. And it's not really that big of a surprise that this is a possibility, considering some of their elite membership. Throughout the course of their career, they have populated names such as Hellhammer and ICS Vortex, while Garm, of course, from Oliver, has been one of their staple members. This is actually kind of a side project. However, the Sham Mirrors really showcases the diversity of the band, combining a little bit of symphonic metal along with avant-garde and really space metal to go with a progressive vibe that just dazzles you with the way in which these compositions have been composed, not to sound redundant. Look at songs such as Nightmare Heaven and Radical Cut, which actually features some guest vocals from Isan, from Emperor and, of course, his self-titled fame, and you will understand exactly what we're talking about. These are densely layered. They have portions which are just simulated chaos, but also some repetition, which actually grants the album a very hypnotic and out-of-this-world feel. Certainly an album where if you were considering going into space metal or really wanted to see a gem and hear a gem from the genre, this is an album that you absolutely need to consume. It's quintessential. We turn next to Faith No More with their seminal and quintessential album, The Real Thing, which was released in 1990. This was the first album that starred Mike Patton as the vocalist of the band, and it is a phenomenal piece of music. Still widely considered to be an absolutely essential album, period, but also the best album from Faith No More. Of course, that's a cause for debate. Faith No More will be returning with Sol Invictus later on in 2015, their first album in 18 years, ever since their release of Album of the Year in 1997. But The Real Thing was the real deal for multiple reasons. It was the fact that this was a culmination of multiple styles. There's a lot of alternative that you hear on here. There's some heavier elements that could actually push it to the boundaries of hard rock or potentially even heavy metal. Great lyricism. There's funk that's involved here. It was a mixed and varied bag that even included a cover of War Pigs by Black Sabbath, and it's a hell of a cover. It's great. Look at keynote tracks such as The Real Thing, the self-titled, song on the album, and then Falling to Pieces and Epic, and you'll understand why people were glued to this album whenever it first came out, and still remain glued to this day. It's definitely one of my favorite albums because every single one of these songs feels like a winner. They each have their unique little approach and style to it that really resonates well whenever it's played from inception to the very final notes. This is also one that comes with a bonus for Edge of the World, and this is a track that kind of opens up the door for later lounge versions of songs, something that Mike Patton was never afraid to really do, considering we would hear a lounge cover of Easy by Faith No More in later years. Overall, The Real Thing clearly was the real deal simply because it was really damn good, and I cannot recommend this album enough for folks who have not yet experienced the true Real Thing, considering so many albums that have followed have also boasted the same title. If you're looking for a theme within a theme, look no further than the 2 albums that we just talked about, The Real Thing and now Mental Vortex by Coroner. And that theme within the theme is covers. This is an album that features a cover of I Want You, She's So Heavy, which was originally done by the Beatles. And Coroner, being a technical thrash metal band that had some progressive influences by this stage of their career, really had a different scope and a different idea of what they wanted to do than some of their contemporaries, which remained a little bit, stymied within the thrash metal genes. Either that or kind of went toward the jazz-oriented part of the genre with bands such as Cynic, either that or Atheist. This is a great album because of its consistency. It's one that doesn't necessarily bog you down with too much of the same idea. These are tracks that are very accessible, easy to listen to, not to mention the cover is just absolutely phenomenal. I had a boss that was a massive Beatles fan. I played this cover for him, and he, who is not really that big of a metal fan, was absolutely blown away by it. Almost worth the cost of admission by itself. However, the album itself is a dazzler. You have riffs that are just circling around your head while the drums provide the subtle background that you need for the organized chaos that is being presented within. There are moments on this album that are extremely haunting. Others are just absolutely serene and beautiful. This is definitely one to check out, considering there's the possibility that a new Coroner album is coming out here in 2015. We've not gotten too much in the way of concrete detail, but we know they've been working on one. And there's a great possibility that this is going to happen right here this year. And that would be fantastic, considering it would be 22 years since their last album, Grin, came out. Which means that this hiatus can legally drink in the United States of America, although it's probably been doing that ever since it was 15. You knew we had to talk about them, especially with the news that just came out a couple of days ago that Tool finally have the opportunity to move forward with the recording of their new album after dealing with a lot of legal trouble. But then the question becomes which Tool album to talk about. Virtually every Tool album, including some of their EPs, would be perfect for this list and probably will end up appearing on this list. They're just that solid of a band. They just have a great setup, a fantastic sense of presence, and overall, this is just terrific music to listen to, no matter what mood that you're in. But I chose Aenima because it's kind of a seminal, album by the band, and it's also the one that I remember going back to the most out of all of the others. This is definitely a terrific disc, one that is able to maintain an atmosphere that's kind of foreboding, but at the same time, very, very accessible. We have some singles on this album, but really where all of the real pieces fall into place, not to quote a line from a latter disc, is whenever this band is able to expand their horizons and really take things to the next level. This is not a group that's really meant for 4-minute tracks. They're really meant to just drone out for 7 to 9 minutes with their very, very heavy but also exceptionally progressive and atmospherically charged degree of rock. And songs such as Push It really do that very, very well, and songs such as Eulogy also are just absolutely quintessential. You look at this album and you listen to this album and you just hear all of the fantastic elements that Tool has to offer. You listen to Undertow and you get that as well, but Aenima really solidified all of those things. And while Undertow is a bit of a heavier disc, Aenima was one that just seemed to put all of those unique pieces together into a perfect fit puzzle. Now, of course, 2015 may not be whenever we get the new Tool album. However, they are back in the studio and recording, and they would like to have everything done by the end of this year, which means either we're going to have a new Tool album by the end of this year, or we're going to have a new Tool album, hopefully, sometime within the first quarter of next year, which is desperately, desperately necessary, considering I believe next year would be the 10-year anniversary of the release of their final album, or at least their last album so far, which is 10,000 Days. And if you know how long 10,000 days actually is, it's in the tens of years. We haven't waited that long, but we don't want to wait that long, goddammit, so I hope that it does come to fruition. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 4 albums by 4 bands that are expected to, or have already announced that they will be making their return in 2015 after lengthy album hiatuses. Words. If you like this series, if you like what you heard, and like even more the albums that have been recommended, please subscribe and definitely like the video, and go over to coverkillernation on Facebook and definitely get involved over there. You'll be the first one to know that a new episode of CoverkillernAtion's favorite albums has come out. I also have all 4 of these albums, at least the way in which they are spelled, in the description box below for those of you who are not fluent in the language. I don't want to leave you guys out simply because I'm an American prick, and I think prick is probably just a bit of an understatement. Also, support all of the other YouTube album reviewers that you happen to come across, and definitely support this community. We are hoping to bring music to you guys that you can hopefully explore for yourself and find your next favorite bands. So I will see you guys back here in 1 week, where we will have episode number 3 of Cover Killer Nation's favorite albums. Until then, though, put in the comments below what should be the theme of next week's episode. Thanks, guys, and you guys have a fantastic evening. I'm out.